Hello viewers and welcome to yet another live-action commentated match of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. My name is Mitch, and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today I'm pleased to share with you another video sent in courtesy of Pejhmon Kamaie, as well as Shirin. To the left we happen to have not just our initiative token, but also one of two upcoming Planetfall cycle Warlords. On the left we happen to see our upcoming Space Marines faction Warlord Chaplain Mavros. He's 2 attacks, 7 hit points, and he has the action deal 1 damage to a target Space Marines faction unit at a blue technology icon planet in order to give it a persistent +1 attack bonus until the end of the phase, limit twice per phase. On the right, we happen to have our upcoming Astra Militarum faction Warlord Broderick Worr. He's an attack value of 2, he's got 6 hit points. Any units that retreat from his planet are instead destroyed, and each other Astra Militarum faction unit you control positioned at a green strongpoint icon planet not only gets a +1 attack value bonus, but it also can neither retreat nor be routed. We see a 10th Company Scout put out to planet number 5 by Shirin. It's 2 attack, 1 command with 1 hit point, and we happen to see our first signature card to the right, the Forward Barracks, the signature support of Broderick Worr. It's an incredible card that allows you to win battles of attrition, just because as soon as a combat round ends, so long as you've got an Astra Militarum unit sitting at that planet, you generate a Guardsman token. So unless the opposition can kill off more than 1 unit per round, you could potentially deadlock your opponent and whittle them away with those Guardsman tokens until you eventually win. And if those tokens are generated at a green planet, then that means that each and every token is going to be attacking for 2. To the left, we happen to see a signature card for Chaplain Mavros. We've got the Ancient Crozius Arcanum. It's not a relic, but it is a powerful signature attachment with the Unstoppable specialization. It means each and every time, the first time that Chaplain Mavros takes damage during each round, he's going to ignore that first point of damage, and then he's going to heal away 1 damage. And considering that his ability can be used on himself, it could make him into an incredibly powerful 4-attack Warlord with some damage prevention, with some built-in healing, and considering you can also combine that with a relic Iron Halo, just makes an incredibly threatening and durable menace of a Warlord. But to the right, we happen to see the signature army unit of Broderick Worr. We've got the Anxious Infantry Platoon. It only costs 2, it's got 1 command icon, 3 attack, 3 hit points. Note that it's being bolstered to 4 attack because it's at a green planet. It's traditionally got the forced reaction where at the end of a combat round you have to pay 1 resource or retreat that unit. But again, considering it's at a green strongpoint planet, thanks to Broderick Worr himself, it can neither retreat nor be routed, so Pejhmon can just keep that unit there with no additional expense whatsoever. And we happen to see one of 2 signature army units for Chaplain Mavros there to the left. We happen to possess the Emperor's Champion, 2 command, 3 attack, 6 hit points, and it's got the incredible ability where as a combat action you can pick an enemy unit at that planet, and during the next available opportunity it has to spend its combat action to attack you. So if you're worried about a vicious bloodletter attacking you with area effect 3, you can simply pick your opponent's Chaos Fanatics or Void Pirates, and instead they have to attack you, so it allows you not just 1 opportunity to kill off whatever's bothering you, but potentially 2 or more. So an incredible unit, and the fact that it's unique is very great against Exterminatus, Archon's Terror, Doom, not Inquisitorial Fortress like our Astra Militarum faction player may be running, but all the same, absolutely fantastic. And of course, to the right, we happen to see a second copy of the Anxious Infantry Platoon, so I'm not sure if the combat action of the Emperor's Champion is going to be doing much good during this round, but that remains to be seen. We end up seeing a copy of the Rattling Deadeye put out to planet number 5 to tie command for both of our players, and as we decide where exactly we're going to be sending our Warlords, in assessing our opening layout of planets, planet number 1 is going to be Taurus, which allows players the opportunity to benefit from keeping their unit count lower than that of their opponent in the form of drawing 3 cards or earning 3 resources. Karnath is our wild card at number 2. It's going to afford players the opportunity to trigger the battle ability of any other planet. Planet number 3 is going to be Iridial, the healing planet. Planet number 4 is going to be Yvarn, which allows players to put any unit from their hand directly into play into their HQ. And planet number 5 is going to be Ossus 4, the resource stealing planet. Something pretty interesting here is there's not a lot of 2-value planets out, not a lot of cards or resources to be had. Looks as though both of our players are actually choosing planet number 2 to send their warlords to, and that means that planet number 1 is going to be a push, planet number 2 is going to be a push, and planet number 5 is going to be a push. So that's going to be no additional cards or resources for either of our players whatsoever. Looks as though I'm not seeing any resource tokens whatsoever. And that means there's not going to be really any tricks to be had during combat except for maybe zero-cost events, so we could see something along the lines of Crushing Blow from our Space Marine, and then just shield cards, maybe something like a Suppressive Fire or something along those lines from our Astra Militarum faction unit. But it looks as though the Emperor's Champion takes a swing at one of those Anxious Infantry platoons, and speak of the devil, there's a Suppressive Fire right there, used as shields instead of for its conventional exhaust target unit at the expense of exhausting one of your own units. So it's going to be a not killed Anxious Infantry platoon. That's going to be a 4 attack value Anxious Infantry platoon taking a swing at the Emperor's Champion there. Looks as though we saw some mystery card discarded as a 1 shield card, and now what exactly is Shirin going to do? There's not enough resources on the table for a drop pod assault. It looks as though maybe there was not a shield card discarded, which seems quite wise as that Emperor's Champion is already destroyed. That's 5 resources down the drain, and that's an elite, very powerful elite outright destroyed. So this is very important here. It looks as though both of those units are basically exhausted, so they're actually going to unexhaust, and then you're eligible to attack, but there are no enemy army units, and that is when the battle is going to conclude. And that means that the forward barracks sitting out there is actually going to generate a guardsman token prior to winning that battle, and then all of those units being sent off. But it appears as though our AM player has far more units than does our Space Marine, so therefore Taurus is not going to afford Shirin the opportunity. Well, it's not going to afford Pejhmon the opportunity to generate any additional cards or resources there. So Chaplain Mavros, it looks as though he activated his ability once upon himself to augment his attack value for 3. The Ancient Crozius Arcanum is not a reaction. The Unstoppable Specialization has to be triggered during the first available opportunity to do so, but that means he's going to be able to attack for 3 against Broderick Worr. Personally, if it were me, I think I'd have augmented that attack up to 4, but I suppose we'll have to see what happens. Broderick Worr takes a return swing after taking 3 damage himself, and that's going to be 2 points of damage dealt out to Chaplain Mavros. We note that a combat round comes to a close there, and that's going to be a guardsman token generated, so I would have to look up the exact order of events, but I believe it's all units exhaust, then you have the opportunity to retreat, then the combat round ends, so I believe that was an erroneously generated guardsman token. But of course, this is all playtesting, this is all speculation, and both of our players are as new to the Planetfall cycle as I am, so I'll definitely have to check the RRG after this match, but it looks as though Karnath actually resulted in the triggering of Yvarn. So very interesting couple of cards there that we see put into play. We see a copy of the Fire Drake Terminators, which are a 3/6 unit with 2 command icons. As soon as they're declared a defender, they deal out 1 point of damage to the attacker. Not nearly so good against guardsman tokens and other units as, say, it would be Chimera or Termagant tokens. And to the right, we very rarely see that. That's a 3/5 with 3 command icons, ranged keyword Shrieking Basilisk. Traditionally, it costs 6, but it's not nearly so bad put into play for free, but considering it's going to be entering combat exhausted during the first round, that ranged keyword isn't going to do much good, and it's going to encourage Broderick to dump all of his forces out at a kind of further away than first planet type planet. But HQ phase comes and goes. 4 resources, 2 cards for each of our good players. Barlas is going to be our new planet number 5. And note, of course, that the initiative token is currently on the right in Pejhmon's hands, and each of our planets happens to be oriented toward the planet or toward the player that will possess initiative at that planet when it happens to be the first planet. So we saw a copy of the Catachan Outpost put into play into Pejhmon's HQ. That's going to be a action to give a unit +2 attack value. We also happen to see a Catachan Outpost almost for Chaplain Mavros there to just give him absurd heights of attack power. We see a Sanctioned Psyker to the right at planet number 5. We see Iron Guard Recruits to the left at planet number 3. And now both of our players are going to decide where exactly they want to send their Warlords. We could see our Astra Militarum player win the game as early as planet number 3, should Broderick decide to be a little bit greedy, but he could just as easily set himself up at planet number 3, which happens to be Yvonne, to drop off all those units to basically lock down that planet, try to win Iridial next turn. Looks as though Chaplain Mavros is going to be ending up going to planet number 2, and Broderick goes to planet number 2 as well. So this is pretty interesting. Note that there's going to be a tremendous wealth of units accompanying Broderick to that planet. There's only going to be that Fire Drake Terminators accompanying accompanying Chaplain Mavros to that planet. So I guess Broderick went for the healing ability as opposed to just playing it safe and dropping off all those units to definitely sweep Yvonne and then try for Iridial next turn. But in regard to command struggles, planet number 1 is going to go entirely uncontested. It's actually going to go uncaptured as well. Planet number 2, we're going to see a push. Planet number 3 is going to be 1 resource to the left for Shirin. Planet number 4 is going to be a tie, and planet number 5 is going to be 2 cards to the right there for Pejhmon. So there are a hell of a lot of units here sitting at planet number 1. Note that planet number 1 is going to be a green planet, just like our previous planet number 1, which means all of these AM units are going to be attacking for an additional 1, and they cannot retreat until well, I guess they actually just cannot retreat. So if Broderick Worr sits at a non-green planet, enemy units that attempt to retreat would be destroyed. And so long as he's hail, so long as the planet's green, your units cannot retreat or be routed at all, whether you want them to be or not. So it looks as though we see Broderick himself end up retreating as his combat action, since he's the player with initiative. So he's deciding to play it safe there. We've got Chaplain Mavros. He could easily take his opportunity to attack, deal out 2 points of damage, or he could deal up to 2 points of damage to himself, just so that he'll be swinging for 4. So it looks as though we just see that ability activated 1 time, so he deals himself 1 point of damage, Unstoppable prevents it, and the Ancient Crozius Arcanum also removes 1 point of damage. So he's going to be attacking for 3, augmented up to 5, looks like, by the Catachan Outpost. We saw a copy of the Emperor's Warrant discarded as shields, so that's going to be 3 points of damage dealt out to the Shrieking Basilisk. So remember that for the remainder of the round, that's going to be a Shrieking Basilisk, for the remainder of the round, that's going to be a Chaplain Mavros attacking for 3. And all of those AM units, we see the combat round, of course, come to a close. That's going to be an additional Guardsman token. Shirin still has to ready her units. The initiative token is still going to be in the hands of our Astra Militarum player. And it looks as though Shirin actually chose to retreat her units. Very interesting choice there. And that means that Iridial is going to be activated, and that is now a completely healed Broderick Worr. So very interesting approach, but I guess Chaplain Mavros didn't want to face down that onslaught of Guardsman tokens and everything else. But looks as though we see yet another HQ phase. The initiative token is once again going to transfer to the left to be in the hands of Chaplain Mavros there in Shirin's hands. We see our new 5th and final planet is going to be Planum, which allows units to be relocated to any unit that they would like, so long as they happen to be a non-Warlord unit. Our new planet number 1 is going to be Iridial, so if Broderick Worr ends up winning at Iridial, which he's all but certain to do, that's going to be 1 icon of each kind, and then if he manages to win at Yvonne, then that's well going to be the game for Broderick. So it looks as though our Astra Militarum player is going to be heavily incentivized to deploy units out either to Ossus 4 or to Yvonne. He's already got a bit of a presence established at Ossus 4. He's got that ranged unit that can benefit from Catachan Outpost. So I suppose if you want to play things very cautiously, very conservatively, I could see deploying no additional units to Iridial, doing no more than probably tying the opponent at Yvonne, but honestly, I wouldn't even deal with that. I think Chaplain Mavros is going to be incentivized to send himself to either planet number 3. I would say planet number 3, unless there's just a horrific number of enemies sitting at that planet. I think that's where you'll want to go. You'll want to set up your Terminators to try to block off an enemy victory condition. The only problem, I guess, is if that happens, then Broderick could still win at planet number 2. But perhaps we're going to see a bit of an even distribution for our armed forces here from Shirin. She puts a copy of the Blood Angels Veterans out to planet number 2, so she's definitely shoring up her defense at that location. It's a 3/3 unit that basically shaves off the first point of damage it incurs. Even if Broderick shows up to planet number 2, he'll get the opportunity to attack first, and if he were to attack that Blood Angels Veterans, it'll get full benefit from that attack ignoring effect. But Broderick is once again fully hale, and what exactly are we going to see? We see a copy of the Cadian Mortar Squad put out to planet number 3, which I think is a relatively fantastic choice. It's a 1/3s with ranged. As soon as an allied unit leaves play at that planet, you ready it. So if you sacrifice units or something along those lines, it can attack multiple times during the combat round, and that's overall pretty fantastic. But we see played opposite it a Tactical Squad Cardenas, which is a 1/3 with Area Effect 1, and if we're going to be seeing a lot of Astra Militarum faction units being all piled up at the same planet, Area Effect 1 or 2 or whatever it happens to be is just going to be a hell of an effect in allowing you to decimate your opponent's standing forces. So what exactly are we going to see? To the right, we can see that it's going to be our Pejhmon's opportunity to take a deploy turn, and what are we going to see? We see a brand new card. This is going to be yet another upcoming Planetfall card. It's the attachment, the Huge Chain Chopper. It costs 1. It gives the attached unit +4 attack, but they no longer ready during, between combat rounds as one would normally expect. But seeing as how that boosts the Cadian Mortar Squad up to a modified 6, thanks to Broderick Worr, if you want to sacrifice Guardsman tokens via Captain Marcus or Summary Execution or whatever it happens to be, that is going to be absolutely just incredible. If you can use and abuse that 6 attack value unit, that is insane. And, Space Marines do have Indomitable. Iron Halo is also a thing, but 6 attack is just incredible. And if you can attack multiple times, there are only so many Indomitables you can have in your deck, and that you'll statistically be inclined to draw. But both of our players are deciding where exactly they'd like to go. I could see Broderick easily going to planet number... Looks as though he's going to go to planet number 3. So he's going to take that opportunity to hopefully kill off some of the opposition there. But things are still looking quite good for Mavros, just because there's not going to be a lot of opportunity for units to leave play to help out with that Cadian Mortar Squad. But it at least prevents the opponent from doing Area Effect 1 and accidentally killing off that Rattling Deadeye only to get annihilated. So planet number 1 is going to be 1 card to the right there for Pejhmon. He's also going to benefit from that ability. It looks as though he's stripping damage away from the Shrieking Basilisk. Note that there is no opportunity to win there's no second combat round at that planet because units are ready. They say, okay, I've got an opportunity to take a combat turn. There are no enemy units, so we never get to the end of the combat round. Therefore, there's no Guardsman token. Planet number 2 there is going to be 1 resource to the left for Shirin. Planet number 3 is going to be, let's see here, 3 versus 2. That's going to be 2 resources to the right for Pejhmon. Planet number 4 is also going to be 2 cards for Pejhmon, and now we're going to see battle here at planet number 3. The initiative token happens to be in the hands of Chaplain Mavros. Note that it's not a blue planet, so we could see Area Effect 1. I guess they're ranged units, so what am I talking about? We've got a ranged attack of 6 coming in. We've also got a ranged attack of 2. The Tactical Squad is not much of a threat here, because if they use Area Effect 1, that would be a poor life choice, because then the Rattling Deadeye is gone, and we're going to see another 6 attack with the Cadian Mortar Squad. So we see the Rattling Deadeye take a shot. What exactly are they going to attack? We see the Tactical Squad Cardenas is going to be the target of that attack. So this is incoming 2 points of damage, and let's see how exactly this gets resolved. There are a lot of interesting targets here for sure. You could have killed off that 10th Company Scout. Looks as though... Okay, so we saw the Catachan outpost actually augment that attack up to 4. So that means the tactical squad is going to be outright destroyed. And let's see, how is this going to go? The Cadian Mortar Squad, I can only imagine, is going to be attacking that Fire Drake Terminators. Now that Iridial is gone, this is going to be an attack value of 6. What exactly does our Space Marine have to try to mitigate or ameliorate or otherwise lessen, decrease the damage going out here? Looks as though he's perhaps chosen Chaplain Mavros, and what do you know about that? That's a copy of Indomitable for 1 lone resource. That's going to be 0 damage instead of 6. So a big bit of a deal with it right there. We see a copy of Noble Deed. That's going to be, I believe, the unit's printed attack value dealt to the 10th Company Scouts. That's only going to be 1 point of damage dealt to the Scout, but it could potentially kill off the Scout. Looks like Shirin's only got 1 card in hand, and of course, seeing as how the Rattling Deadeye is sacrificed, that means it's leaving play, and that means that the Cadian Mortar Squad is going to be sitting right there ready to wreck some house. So are we going to see Shirin discard a card in order to preserve the life of the lowly 10th Company Scout? Will he ever have the honor of becoming a tactical or assault marine? What exactly are we going to see? 10th Company Scout does not survive, but as they say, not everybody's cut out to be a Space Marine. I definitely didn't make it myself. And that's going to be a Cadian Mortar Squad taking another swing there, and I believe that was an Indomitable discarded as shields, so that's very interesting. That's going to be 5 points of damage dealt out to Chaplain Mavros. Looks as though there's a preemptive barrage, and that's going to be Broderick Worr gaining ranged, and that, wow, what an upset. So here's how that broke down. We saw an incoming attack of 6. The Ancient Crozius Arcanum's Unstoppable Specialization dropped that down to 5. I didn't have any damage to heal away at the time, and then Broderick gains ranged, and he attacks for 2, and that's going to be the finishing blow, and that's going to be a bloodied Chaplain Mavros. So note that Chaplain Mavros is going to be a 2/5 on the bloodied side. That's what our players here have agreed to, and they're using a proxied Captain Kiddo Sicarius there. So combat round comes to a close. Note that the Cadian Mortar Squad did not ready, but because we come to the end of a combat round and there are indeed Astra Militarum units sitting at that planet, that's going to be a Guardsman token put into play. That's going to be a 2/2 token, and it's going to be able to attack the Fire Drake Terminators without being outright destroyed, thanks to that reaction it's got. So the Fire Drake Terminators are going to take a swing at something. It's going to be that copy of the Cadian Mortar Squad. Looks as though we see a copy of the Summary Execution signature event discarded as shields. That means it's only going to be taking 1 point of damage, and it's still going to be able to ready potentially during the HQ phase. And if we see another copy of Noble Deed, that is going to be incredibly sneaky and devious indeed. But the Guardsman token and Broderick Worr both take a swing. That's 4 points of damage dealt out to those Fire Drake Terminators, and that's going to be a grand total of 1 point of damage to each of our units here. Once again, that forward barracks absolutely doing work. This is something like the 4th legitimate Guardsman token that it's put into play. That's going to be the end of a combat round, so we've seen that Guardsman token and the Fire Drake Terminators. Let's see how things are going to go. Looks as though we're at a green strong point planet, and we've actually seen an illegal play, unfortunately. So the Cadian Mortar Squad retreats, and that should not actually be able to take place based on Broderick Worr's printed text. But it looks as though we see another copy of the huge Chain Choppa discarded as shields in order to prevent the 1 point of damage dealt out by the Fire Drake Terminators. I believe they took an opportunity to kill off one of those Guardsman tokens, then the token attacked. Okay, so the initiative token should still have been in the possession of Shirin. I believe she'd have had the opportunity to take a swing, kill off one of those tokens unless I missed a shield card, and then one of the tokens would have had the opportunity to attack. She wouldn't have had any shields. We could have seen that huge Chain Choppa discarded as shields in order to prevent that damage entirely. But in any case, we've now got an HQ full of units there for Broderick Worr, so just of paramount importance to keep in mind that Broderick isn't just invincible, he also puts his units in a little bit of jeopardy there, so we should see that Cadian Mortar Squad being outright destroyed. But in any case, once again, you know, mistakes can and will be made until Planetfall Cycle is released and we get used to it. Pejhmon there to the right, we happen to see he possesses the initiative token. We see Sister Seraphim, or Seraphim Superior Allegra sitting out of planet number 2. She's a 3/4, but she's a green planet, so she's going to be attacking for 4, and when she attacks, you ready one of your supports, so it's absolutely fantastic to use a combat action, to use a Catachan Outpost, give her a 2 boost, and then you attack with her, ready the outpost, and that's just incredible. So we saw a copy of the Imperial 5th Siege Force put out to planet number 1, but there are no units to rout with that effect. We see Broderick Worr wisely set himself up at one of his victory condition planets, planet number 2. He drops, of course, just a tremendous wealth of units there. Chaplain Mavros plays it safe by going to planet number 3. He's going to be able to presumably win a, like a free discard there. That's going to be, let's see, Planet Yvarn, won by our Space Marines player. I don't believe that Shirin is actually triggering that effect, so Ossus 4 is soon to be our new planet number 1. We're going to see no battle occur at planet number 2. That's going to be basically, like, Yvarn was 1 resource for Shirin. Ossus 4 is 2 resources there for Pejhmon. Planet 3 is going to be 2 cards for Shirin, and now we see battle. Ossus 4 results in Pejhmon stealing 1 resource. It's going to be 2 points of damage dealt to the Sanctioned Psyker by Chaplain Mavros there. The Ancient Crozius Arcanum is still going to be able to activate. So let's see. Basically, the way that this works is we see... Okay, so Sanctioned Psyker attacked for 2. We saw 1 of that damage prevented by the Unstoppable specialization there. So we saw Chaplain Mavros retreat, and again we see another guardsman token generated at that planet, which just goes to show that forward barracks is absolutely nuts, since units, the battle doesn't end until you've got an opportunity to take a combat turn and an eligible unit with which to take it. That means a new combat round starts. That's going to be another guardsman token, and that is just an incredible signature support. God, that might... rival something along the lines of the Chimera Den, but we're going to see another HQ phase come and go. There's no new 5th planet this time. That's going to be 4 resource... That's going to be 4 resources and 2 cards for each of our players. During our previous turn, I believe we saw a Vow of Honor discarded as shields. Whether or not that did ultimately end up in the discard pile, that may or may not have been a mistake. Because if it was used as shields, then I believe Chaplain Mavros should have 1 fewer point of damage on him than he currently does. But we start to see some cards being put out fast and furious here. We see, I believe, another copy of the Anxious Infantry Platoon and Acadian Mortar Squad to planet number 1, which is going to be the game-deciding planet. Keep in mind that if Chaplain Mavros goes to one of these planets, another preemptive barrage could mean that he's completely nuked off the face of the battlefield entirely, and we see a Reclusium Templar here put out to planet number 1, so Chaplain Mavros should not go to planet number 1, just because that's going to jeopardize his, winning, or her winning the game, but at this point, it's going to be an incredibly difficult wall to try to surmount as the Space Marines faction player, and I cannot imagine anything that our Space Marine could potentially do. I guess because of that Blood Angels veterans, the Imperial 5th Siege Force, and the Iron Guard recruits, we're going to want to see our Space Marine player go to planet number 1, but it kind of sucks because she's going to have to spend her first combat action to retreat with Chaplain Mavros. That's going to be our Astra Militarum player winning 2 resources at planet number 1, 2 cards at planet number 2, and no player is going to win anything from planet number 3. So we see 2 copies of Catachan Outpost exhaust. There's that copy of the Acadian Mortar Squad that should, in all honesty, not be still in play, but that's going to be a grand total of an incredible 10 points of damage dealt out to Chaplain Mavros there. So Acadian Mortar Squad is 1. It's got that +1 attack bonus from being at a green planet. The huge Chain Choppa gives an additional 4. Both of those copies do an additional 4 beyond that, thanks to the Catachan Outpost. So just absolutely absurd during the range skirmish rounds. So with that said, our players, of course, have called out GG. That's Chaplain Mavros destroyed, so congratulations to Pejhmon for piloting Broderick Worr to victory, but of course, very well played all the same by Shirin for putting up a hell of a fight as Chaplain Mavros. So once again, thank you to both of our players for sending in this footage, for taking a little bit of a risk and exposing themselves, helping better educate the community with a couple mistakes for just playing some finicky cards like Broderick Worr, the forward barracks. Definitely I've made my own share of mistakes, and no player is without having commit such transgressions. So definitely let me know what you think of this video in the comments below. Do you think that anybody's going to be able to stop Broderick Worr? Is he going to be able to bring the Astra Militarum to be the tier 1 faction they definitely deserve to be? And does my personal favorite Chaplain Mavros stand to make much of an impact in regard to our upcoming meta during the Planetfall cycle? He was not able to abuse the Blood Angels Veterans deploy stall trick during this video, and is that what's going to make all the difference? You know, let me know. But as always, I'll just end this video by saying, if you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already, or if you are already subscribed, you're always encouraged to share this content, as the more likes, the more views these videos receive, the more subscriptions my channel incurs. All of it means new players are more likely to be exposed to Conquest. They'll stumble upon this game, perhaps give it a try, like what they experience, join our community, and of course we keep sending the message to Fantasy Flight Games to continue to support this fantastic product. If at any point you'd like to get in touch with me, I would encourage you to do so through Twitter or on Facebook, as I'm always on the lookout to spectate, commentate, and record games. And if you'd like to be like Pejhmon or Shirin or Alexander Chimadon, and you'd like to try your hand at recording your own live-action isometric angle tabletop camera recorded matches, I'd be absolutely honored were you to send in that footage. But if you'd like to help donate to support the Hive Tyrant, I would also encourage you to check out my Patreon. But with that said, thank you once again for watching, and as always, be sure to check back in again soon for ever more Conquest LCG content to come.